Welcome to another edition of Mark's Inspiration. Glad you could join me as always. Got the D-Man here, and today's topic is going to be good and bad. I chose good and bad because I got this new chair yesterday, right? You would think that's good. He got a new chair because that other one was old. It was really looking rough, but the chair sucks. It's terribly uncomfortable. It's a nice chair, looks great, but man, no matter how much I adjust it, it just isn't going to work for me. So, is that good or bad? Well, it's bad for me, or so I think. But now my 16-year-old son, of course, as you know, plays games. He wants that chair, and I told him yesterday if I didn't like it, I would give it to him. So, that's good for him, isn't it? Good and bad is all relative to from where you're perceiving it from. It's a perception. Sometimes we think things that happen in our life are terrible. Let's say, for example, your girlfriend who you're very much in love with, you've been going out with her for a couple years, you think everything's great. And all of a sudden she comes up to you and says, honey, I love you, but I'm just not in love anymore. It's not you, it's me. I just need some space. And you're like devastated. You're like, you thought everything was okay, and then she's telling you this. It's like, what's going on? Of course, you're going to think that's bad because probably you're going to feel bad. So you think, well, you give her some space, and then you find out she's been going out with Chad for the last 3 or 4 weeks behind your back. Now that seems like that's even worse. How much badder can it get? You're devastated even more. You're depressed. You don't want to do anything. You can barely make it to work. You have no motivation. You're totally focused on her, sleeping with her new boyfriend and the things that you guys did together. You're thinking about her doing that with him. I mean, this is tough. I know. I've been there, okay? So I understand that. Now, this seems terrible, but if you take that and motivate or let that motivate you to become, I hate to use the word better because that implies that you're not good enough. But if you let that motivate you to become more, to learn, to find out what you did to get yourself into that situation, how did you allow it to get to that point? Because I believe the man is the leader in the relationship. And if your woman's not following you, she's going to lead. And she's going to lead herself right out of your life. Okay, so you can take this and let it motivate you to look within yourself and to become more of a man, to become more of the man that you desire to be, so that you will not allow yourself to be in this situation again. And if your woman would decide to leave you in the future, it wouldn't matter to you because you have other women, you have other options. This can all become a good thing. I've been married 4 times, as most of you know, okay, and except for the first time, the last 3 times that these women, when I separated with them, it was pretty devastating. 2 of them I had children with, and I tried to make it work, and no matter what I did, it just didn't work. So I had to look at myself and ask myself, how did I allow this relationship to get to this point? As long as you blame the other person, your life will never get better. But if you look within yourself and take responsibility, then you can change and become better and learn from this. So, long story short, without me going into every one of my relationships that I had to walk away from because I was getting disrespected, I learned from these, I grew, and I became more of the man I desired to be. It actually propelled me more towards my vision. So when I look back, I have no resentment against any of these girls, even though the last 3, maybe the last 4, I think they cheated on me. A couple of them, I know that they did because they admitted they did. 1 or 2, I'm not sure about. But if you suspect, it's very possible that it happened. I could be wrong. The point is, even though this was that gut-wrenching pain, I allowed it to to motivate me to look deep within myself and change things in me that needed to be changed. It built character within myself. So, was that bad or good? I look back on it all now, and it's good. I use a technique called revision, or I have played with it by Neville Goddard, where you look back in the past on a situation that didn't happen the way you wanted it to, and you revise it in your mind and change it in your vision, in your mind, to where it happens the way you wanted it to. Now, when I look back in my past, even some of the things that were terrible that happened to me, for example, my ex-wife accused me of abusing my kids, which I didn't do, of course. Now, that seemed terrible at the time, but all of that built me into who I am today. You know, I got it all cleared up. Of course, I didn't do it. My kids are with me today, and they were forced to say that. But the point is, even though that seems a terrible thing for someone to do to you, it was a favor. All that was a favor for me. They did me a favor because it forced me to look within myself and grow. You know, why did this happen to me? Why am I being accused of something I didn't do? It brought me to the point where I could allow God, the universe, or whatever, to take charge of things when I didn't know what to do. And everything worked out better for me than I ever could have imagined myself. I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to get my kids, to get custody of my kids. Well, guess what? In the end, I didn't have to spend anything. I just surrendered and gave up and just did the footwork, did what was in front of me, and now I have all my kids with me. Six of my kids are with me. My youngest daughter, no, not my youngest, one of my daughters, who was taken away from me by the system years ago, returned to me about 3 years ago, apologizing to me because she thought badly about me because her mother told her these things that weren't true, and she was young and she believed it. Of course, I wasn't angry. I understood. But all that seemed bad. It all turned out perfectly when I let go and allowed the universe to work it out on its own without me getting in there and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to make things my way, trying to force my will upon the situation. So in retrospect, looking back at all of it, it was all good. I wouldn't change a thing. I would not change a thing, even though I had to leave the country to avoid prosecution. And then I was in another country, ended up in the same situation with that ex-wife, had to leave that country to avoid being thrown in jail. So, and all these things I got cleared up today. I have a clean record here, and I don't have any problems. I get along with all the officials in the system that I was enemies with at one time. So everything worked out when I learned the lesson that I needed to learn. I have a wonderful life. My 6 kids are here. My daughter comes to see me now. I don't want to call her a granddaughter. I have a granddaughter, okay. I told her to call me G, and she wants me to call her Z. She's only 3 years old. So anyway, I'm going to read this article about a parable of a Chinese farmer, how an ancient story resonates in today's hard times. Okay, for the 3rd time now, someone has told me the parable of a Chinese farmer from 2,000 years ago. I think that means something, not just to me, but as a sign of our times. First, an instructor shared the story with my yoga class. Then a college professor told it during a career seminar. And last week, a minister I was interviewing mentioned the tale. That's a pretty diverse group. The details differ slightly, but the essence is the same. A Chinese farmer gets a horse, which soon runs away. A neighbor says, "That's bad news." The farmer replies, "Good news, bad news, who can say?" There you go. We judge things as good or bad. We really don't know. The horse comes back and brings another horse with him. Good news, you might say. The farmer gives the second horse to his son, who rides it, then is thrown and badly breaks his leg. "So sorry for your bad news," says the concerned neighbor. "Good news, bad news, who can say?" the farmer replies. In a week or so, the emperor's men come and take every able-bodied young man to fight in a war. The farmer's son is spared. Good news, of course. It's easy to understand why the ancient story of the Chinese farmer resonates now in the times that seem way too full of bad news. The tale of the farmer is said to be a Taoist theology, emphasizes themes such as naturalness, peace, effortless action, detachment, and receptiveness. Effortless action is letting go instead of forcing your will by whatever means you may have, whether it be strength, physical strength, manipulation, because you're in a position of power, or using money or whatever. When you try to force your will upon something, it creates resistance. You may get what you want, but you usually don't get what's good for you. I fought one of my ex-wives for 7 years for custody. Every time I would put the pressure on her, she would come up with a new accusation against me. And in the U.S., she is allowed to make any accusation she wants to, and then when you prove that it was a lie or false, there's no repercussions to the woman. At least at this time, this was 10 years ago or more. There were no repercussions. So I mean, every time I would put the pressure on her, because she was heavily involved in drugs with my child there, she would come up with some new act, from trespassing to abuse of my children or her, and ex parte. I mean, it just went on. And the more money I threw at it, the more resistance she gave. So no matter what I did, it just made things worse on me, which was really, it was incredible. But some of you men, if you've been through the divorce machine here in the U.S., you know what I'm talking about. But the bright side of this is, through all this, and I lost 2 houses, land, I lost everything 2 or 3 times. Now that sounds bad, but it wasn't. It was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it knocked me down. It destroyed, I won't say destroyed, but it diminished my ego enough that I could accept that maybe the universe, God, a higher power, divinity, knew a little bit better what was going to happen or what needed to happen than I did. So it allowed me to surrender. I remember the first day after I got done arguing with the police with the AK-47s and the M16s in Latin America, because they wouldn't give me my children. I went home and I thought, you know what? You're going to get yourself killed here. And that's when I started surrendering to maybe, just maybe, that I didn't know what was best, that I couldn't see the whole picture. So remember that in your life. When it seems like something is just terrible, look for the good in it, because it is there. And even if you can't see the good in it, trust that it's there for you. You just can't see it at the time. You cannot see the big picture. Just like me, I couldn't see the big picture when I was having that gut-wrenching feeling of having my kids taken away. I've had them taken away out of my hands, screaming and hollering for false accusations. They didn't want to go. They knew Dad was good, but I couldn't do anything about it. I didn't react. That was the best thing I did, was I did not take physical action against the officers that took my children. And that happened more than once. And that's a tough thing. That's a hard thing to do. Back in the old days, you could have done something about that, but not today. You just have to control your emotions and allow it to happen. I wasn't very trusting back then, so I did fight back with strong legal action, which is what caused me to have to leave the country. You can't fight City Hall. Anyway, but remember, you don't know what's good or bad. Nothing is either good nor bad. Thinking makes it so. I hope this has been of help to you. Remember, you can't see the big picture. Have a great day. Thanks for joining me. Smash that like button and subscribe. Got a video coming out every day. Be cool.